hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, just want to make sure because was the last time I had to re-log on again. Now, who we have here, I guess, Steve, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Doesn't sound like Steve for some reason.
No, good morning. Good morning. I am JJ Dixon. I think I met everyone on the panel here, but I didn't have an opportunity to meet you, but I have been sitting in on the last 2 or 3 meetings, and Steve is here on the side, but Steve is officially retired.
Oh my gosh, what a lucky dog. I don't know. My wife won't let me retire. She doesn't want me around that much. So I'm plugging away here. JJ, it's glad to meet you. And you're now my 3rd FOP rep. Before Steve, Gary Evans, I was across the table from him many, many times. And I hope he's still doing well. Anyway, are you all ready to begin?
Yes, sir.
First thing I want to make sure is you got the email that I sent to Steve, not knowing, he was no longer employed at that time, yesterday afternoon. Did you get that?
Yes, sir. Steve did forward that to us, and we have had an opportunity to review it.
Great. Thanks, Steve. Well, this is, we have gone back and crafted what we are proposing our last best final offer. We have, I think we were close last time, but I think the issue was raised about compression at the top end of the pay scale. And we tweaked our proposal a little bit to accommodate that by having Sergeant Robert Milligan advance a little quicker and the new relatively new Sergeant Register advance slightly slower, but all of whom would be getting substantial increases in this. We have costed this out that for the bargaining unit alone, it's almost $180,000, but because of the increases we put into our last proposal at the top end with sergeants, there's a little bit of a ripple effect. So the overall with those above sergeants, so the overall impact of this proposal is effectively going to be well over $200,000. There's CARES Act money this year that may be used some for this to get this through. That's not something that you can count on in future years, and these increases and the steps are embedded in the contract, sort of until there's a change, and it's so I think we're at the end of our rope in terms of the amount of money we're putting on the table. We think City Council will ratify it if the union agrees to it. So, but we want to put that out there. We're here to answer questions, but really this is where we're the end of the road for us.
Okay, we did have an opportunity to review it late yesterday evening, and we can agree that we're okay with Article 6. But in terms of Article 11, we had some questions about some of the figures on the graph that was provided to us, and some of the calculations as well. And we also have issue with educational pay and salaries. And so if you have a moment, I think Greg is going to address those 2 issues. And then
that'll be fine. I mean, he can address those, and we'll listen. I didn't realize there was any sort of issue with Article 6 after our last meeting. We had that issue popped up concerning the top of the line on compression on Article 11. But anyway, go ahead, Greg.
On the education thing, we'd like to stick with what we initially proposed. We would.
I understand that, but that's one of those things that hasn't been changed for years and hasn't been a problem. And we're going through some sort of, revolutionary change in how we're paying police officers, and feel that that's sufficient for this round of negotiations at this time. But go ahead.
We were willing to amend that and cap it at $2,500 for any one member. So the most any one member could give would be $2,500, 2.5 degrees.
Yeah, well, we're rejecting that proposal. So let's see what else you have to say about our last best final offer.
The incentive for prior law enforcement experience, you have changed it now where you only get it one time. So basically the way I'm reading your proposal is an officer would be hired at step 2, but then would not get a raise until they're here 3 years.
No. If somebody's hired, if you look at our proposal in section 11.1, says when hiring an officer with prior experience, the police chief has discretion to slot the officer in a step above time and grade for year 1 with corresponding credit for time and grade. So if chief hires somebody at step 2, they get credit for that.
Okay. Well, that's a calculation that's not included on the tally sheet.
Well, there's nobody that's been hired, you know, it's got to be somebody hired in at that slot as opposed to, you know, I don't know that that's happened yet because we haven't yet adopted this contract.
So anybody that's already employed that was hired initially with that bump for prior experience is going to lose it?
I don't know. They're going to be slotted in to where they should be in terms of time and grade. If they were slotted in, you know, at a particular place, they should be there. I mean, I don't really understand the question.
Well, Officer Ryan Collins that you've got listed here pending, I don't see an increase in his. He's got prior.
Ryan Collins. Now I don't know the answer to these specific questions. Maybe one of the chiefs does, but Ryan Collins, it says he's a rehire. I'm looking, this is very fine print.
Actually, if I could jump in on there, if you look at Greer, if you look at Chauncey Mays, if you look at Taylor Sapp, they're all rehires. When they were rehired, their time in service for LCPD, they were given credit for that. So when they left, so that we've already done that in the past. When officers from Lake City come back, we've given them their time and grade back.
So there's no incentive for an officer from another agency.
The chief has the authority to bring them in at step 2. And then the next year they're here, they go to step 3.
But the ones that are already here and were brought in with that under the current step plan, they're losing that incentive?
What he's looking for is if you brought in an officer from another agency, he wants them to be given a step increase.
If it was given to them when they were hired.
They were already given it when they were hired.
We get them step.
You don't use the microphone.
Sorry, I'm so sorry. So sorry. Yeah, when they were brought in, they were brought in at where they were supposed to be at that time. So not when we get this ratified and corrected, then they go to the next. They will be placed where they're supposed to be when they're brought in.
So if me and JJ are hired the same day, I'm newly out of the academy, she's got 10 years of experience, she would get a bump now.
Start at step 2.
Right, experience.
But since
Start where you're supposed to be.
Okay, so
Start where you're supposed to be out of the academy. That's where you would start.
okay, me and JJ are current employees. I started here right out of the academy. I had 5 years now. JJ started here with 30 years experience. She has 5 years now. We're making the same thing.
Well, like precinct, different agencies. Step right now, go on step 2 next year. I think they're asking, we should be getting that one step off.
Yes.
Step 3.
Anybody with prior experience that was already given that one step increase that you carry over.
Eric, with that, I'm going to have to talk about that and look at the financial implications in our past and where we're going with the step and all of that. So.
Yeah, and this, of course, this is a contract that goes into effect this
Right.
past October 1. It doesn't cover what happened before
Retroactive.
now.
Right.
There's also the last three officers that were hired and are employed, Diaz, Van Zyl, and Jones Johnson. I believe they were started at 35.5. So those three officers will have to take a 3% pay cut.
Well, if they were hired at 35.5, I don't think there's any intent to cut anybody's pay.
Okay, so then they will be making more money than the officer sitting in the driver's seat training, because they're all three still in FTO training.
We'd have to look at those individual situations, because I was unaware of any kind of buddy being hired at 35.5 under so they were slotted in with some experience. Is that what the?
No, sir, they're all right out of the academy, just graduated.
Well, why would they be hired more than at the current 33,496?
I'm not sure.
Well, we'll have to take a look at those individual situations and see what the economic impact of it. There was no intent in our proposal to reduce compensation. And as a matter of fact, as you can see, we were looking to increase compensation.
There was also questions about individual officers' pay. Officer Bates, if you look at hers, the numbers don't add up. $17.58 an hour is not $34,000 a year.
17. Yeah, I don't know.
So we're not sure if this chart is even accurate at all.
Well, if you guys can point out specific individual people where you think the calculations are wrong, let us know that. But I think the intent is to migrate to the scale that you all proposed last December, and to do it over 3 years, 97% of it doing it this year.
Yes, sir. And to do
That's the
something
intent
with
of our proposal.
and to do something with the sergeant line. So if
Yeah, and we did have to,
pass
we did have to accelerate sergeants, and that not only has an impact on the bottom line with sergeants, but it also has impact with, those above sergeant, because of, you got to avoid inversion or.
But we're not here negotiating for those above sergeants.
I know, but we have to take into account what the economic impact of your proposal or our proposal is when we're putting it on the table, because we've got to get city council to agree to ratify whatever we agree to here.
A couple of meetings ago, I brought up the fact that based on FDLE's numbers, we were way down in salaries, and you said those were not good numbers.
Well, I tell you what it is there are a lot of comparators you're looking at that aren't comparators.
Okay. So
I mean,
what I did do is I looked at the Evergreen study that the city has paid $50,000 for 3 times for comparison of each position, and they compare it apples to apples. So they compared police officers to police officers of like-sized cities and like-sized officers. That last study that was done in 2019, so it's 2 years old, shows the officer officer salary range from 38,560 to 61,878.
well, we're looking at nearby competitors, and we think our proposal is very competitive to theirs. And this is the end of the road for us. If you got specific,
I'm not here to argue with you, and it seems like every time I have to argue with you.
well,
I'm talking to Mr. Williams now. Could you give me just a minute?
yeah, I will.
Thank you. This is money.
Second, let's calm this down just a little bit, because he really is a negotiating person for us. Okay, Eric is,
But
okay?
he interrupts me every time I try to talk.
But I think what it is, we're both not in the same room. He's on Zoom and you're here, and sometimes you can't, I don't know whether there's a delayed hearing there. I just want to make sure we have been very civil and very good up to this point. I don't think it's intentional. I don't believe that is, okay? So let's just, all right?
I'd just like to be able to finish my points
Okay.
before I get interrupted. The Evergreen study is comparable to agencies our size and in the area. The Evergreen study also says that the maximum for sergeants, they should be maxing out at 75,000. It even has lieutenants on there, says they should be maxing out at 78,000. Well, this was 2 years ago. This wasn't something FDLE put out that shows the entire state. This is something the city of Lake City contracted $50,000 for 3 different times to see where we stood. There's no doubt we are far behind. I think we're all in agreement that we propose to get everybody where we need to be in 3 years and to address the sergeant salary. I think we all can agree that the sergeants never need to supervise somebody making more money. This is the opportunity to solve that. The easy fix for that is instead of having the sergeant start at the top of line 10, have them start at the top of line 12. That is the highest officer pay for the city of Lake City. Line 12 is still a police officer. They still have to have sergeants. So if you started the sergeants at 56,730, and we would even suggest, since there's only 5 steps, go 6% between those steps, that would put them topping out at 71,621, still well below what the Evergreen study shows, still well below what FDLE shows. Yes, you may have to give lieutenants a raise, but you could do that and still be below what Evergreen shows and still be below what FDLE shows. The city just spent I've got it here somewhere, $692,000, given the rest of the city employees in the same wage area as us raises. Those employees were getting merit raises through the past 10 years. Nobody at the police department sworn has gotten a merit raise in the past 10 years. The only raises we've gotten has been cost of living raises, which everybody else in the city got those also. So we're just trying to catch up and get us competitive with other agencies in the area, be able to retain officers, stop spending $18,000 to $22,000 to train 10 officers a year. That's $180,000 to $222,000 there. That would pay for the next year of what we're asking for. I mean, the only difference in yours and ours is based on my numbers, where I try to get them correct, is ours costs $140,980 more than y'all's. Now, that does not include salary incentives for education, because I still have not gotten this public records request field that we spoke about 2 weeks ago or last week. But it does include the step for prior experience. It does include the sergeant starting at the top of line 12, step 10, and a 6% bump between sergeants. I don't think we're asking for something that's outrageous. I mean, we spoke to council members also, and they're in agreement with us that we need raises. We need to be called up where we can retain officers. We don't need to have 12 to 13 officers leaving a year. We need to be able to have an officer come in, make a good wage, look forward to retirement, and have opportunities for promotion. That's what we're trying to establish with the step plan and getting everything in place. We didn't ask for a minimum wage increase when we negotiated the step plan last fall, because we wanted to see what the city did to solve the problem of the minimum wage increase that Florida mandated. The city chose to not do it in 6-year increments. They chose to do it all at one time. We're not even asking to match that. We're just asking for $1 per hour. And what that will do, it will give everybody a nice raise. It'll have us competitive with other agencies, but it will also cover the fact that you've got 3 officers already starting at $35,500. They won't have to lose money now with that $1 an hour raise.
Are you finished?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
I'm sorry, and I apologize. I did not mean to interrupt you, and maybe there is some sort of video lag here, but I was just thought I was talking when you ended a sentence, so I apologize if I had interrupted you. But here, this is the end of the road for us. So we're rejecting all that. Now there may be, if there are specific people that we didn't calculate right on the table, you know, we'll look at that to see whether there's something that can be tweaked there. But we have looked at this and have concluded, contrary to what you've concluded, that we feel that our proposal is competitive to what's in the marketplace that we're dealing with. And it's as far as we can go. And I don't know whether I was at a different meeting than you guys were last time, but it seemed to me when we ended our last meeting, we just had an issue with compression on the top end of the scale. And I even asked if we looked at that issue at the top end, and you said the rest of it was fine, that was a counter proposal. If we agreed to it, we'd add a tentative agreement. We thought we were this close to finishing up last time. So we went back, looked hard, and tweaked the top end so that there relieves some of that compression issue. And they're putting this on the table last. Now you're coming back and talking about how we're way off the base on, you know, sergeants everywhere else. And it's just not going to go. We're not going to put more money on the table, a material amount of more money on the table, because we're already beyond what we think, you know, that, you know, putting more money on the table than we thought we'd get away with. Let me put it that way. So let me, you know, if you have other questions about what our proposal means, the issues you brought up about individuals and where they're slotted, you know, that's legitimate. But if you're talking about any structural change to the proposal, that's rejected.
So Mr. Holzhauser, this 35.5 starting pay, this is going to be accomplished at a gradual increase, am I correct?
Well, the idea was it would be increased over the term of the contract to get to that number. The 35.5 is what was in the scale that the union proposed last December. And we just gave a 2% raise last year. We didn't, but we made a commitment to migrate to that scale. And we're doing it in this proposal to be able to get there 97% of the way there, you know, in year one, and then 99% of the way there in year two, and then all the way there in year three. And that's how it was. Now, I was unaware that people were hired in at the 35.5 and no prior experience, even though our contract says something different. So that's something we'll have to look at. I mean, we've, you know, we're willing to look at things that on individuals, like I said, that were maybe in error, but structurally our proposal stands as is.
So for this year, the starting salary, if I'm looking at this graph correctly, is 34.4.
Correct.
Okay.
34,435, and that goes to 35. What was it? 35,145 in year two, and then the 35.5 in year three.
And then with the miscalculations on the graph, it just makes it kind of difficult to want to say okay, especially when there are errors in the graph that we've been given today.
I understand that, and that's something we got to agree to go take a look at and see where we may have made errors and correct those. And of course, we've got to look at what the economic impact of that is, because like I say, we're looking at a number well over $200,000. It doesn't even include the additional cost of benefits, which, you know, we're just talking about the wage cost, and, you know, cost of benefits is significant. So we'll look at that, and again, we had no intent to cut anybody's pay. The intent was to give everybody a pay increase, some of whom the increase is very substantial in 1 year due to the fact that we kept saying wait till next year for years, you know, and we just finally are coming to bite the bullet and move forward. But we have to do it in a sustainable way, because CARES Act money, you know, won't be here necessarily next year, the year after. And these rates are embedded in the contract for, you know, going forward. And the steps, you know, like I said, under our proposal, most people are going to get a 5% increase next year because there's a 2% of migrating toward the pay scale plus the 3% step. Year 3, most people are going to get a 4% increase. So it's another 9% increase over what we proposed by the end of the contract term, which is substantial.
Okay, thank you so much. We're gonna need probably about 10 or 15 minutes to caucus and then
Okay.
mine, and then we can get back.
And we will caucus as well. And this is all being recorded, right?
Yes. Yes.
Because I haven't done anything to take notes, so I can't make minutes or anything. I assume the recording will act as the minutes. All right,
Thank you.
Chief, give me a call when you get in the other room. Thanks.
use it.
You guys all set?
All set, I think.
All right.
Yeah, we can turn the mic on.
Oh, yeah. What'd you come up with?
Well, we are still a little bit concerned about the numbers on the graph.
Correct. And I tell you what, if you give us a list of those you think we got something wrong on, we'd be very willing to take a look at that. And if you have that, that'd be great.
Well, the most glaring one, if it's correct, is let me get across to this line here. Officer I think it's Ashley Diaz and the four underneath her, I believe it's those four, their starting salary seems to be incorrect. If-
Yeah, well, give us a list. Give us a list so we can take a look at it and we'll definitely go over that.
Okay, so that's the most glaring thing, and those 4 or 5 people coming in at 35.5, it appears we'll actually be making more than some of the more tenured officers by the end of this thing. And that's the biggest issue that we find right now with this. How can we make that right? How can the city make that right? We would suggest that there are only about 4 or 5 people that are affected by this, or would be affected by this, not the 4 that are starting at 35.5, but the ones that have tenure that would be affected. And we would suggest that those people be given some type of a one-time bonus, maybe $500 or $1,000. Once the graph is reworked and that issue is looked at, we're thinking that we may be able to come to some sort of an agreement.
Okay, well, give us a list of exactly who those people are and how much you're talking about. Because, you know, we could, I mean, one way to do it is put them at 35.5, and then in year 2, they would go to 35.8 or something like that. It would be a small increase in the first year, but then they'd get a full step the next year. So that may be a way to do it. I don't think that they would, I think they would be, they wouldn't leap anybody, but they continue to progress. It's just their first step would be smaller.
Are we talking about the 5 that are already at 35.5 or?
Well, I think there are, we think there are 3 that are 35.5 and maybe a 4th coming on board, but they would be at 35.5 this year and then go to like 35.8 because at step 2, because they won't get the full, they'll already get part of a step increase coming in, and then they'd, and then their 3rd year, they would get the full 3% step. I mean, that's just, I mean, I'm just talking, I'm just thinking out loud. What I'm trying to do is find out which employees you think are slotted, you know, what you would, where we did that wrong, and we'll look at it.
It's the last 3 weeks.
Greg's gonna tell us.
The ones we have issue with is Diaz, Benzal, and Johnson. And then the calculation on Gretel Bates is also wrong.
Eric, can I just interject here? So I think we can just, why don't we caucus for a moment? You give us the list of the names right now where you think the calculations are wrong, or anything else on the list where you think the calculations are wrong. Let's go ahead and do that now. It
Correct.
should take you about 5-10 minutes to do that. We'll caucus, we'll look at it, and then we'll see what do we need to do with that. And so we can see if we can go ahead and tie this up today. Okay?
The calculation, you put exactly what's wrong. So
Yeah.
it's not just that it's wrong, here's the mistake.
And one other question we had was, how can this be your last and final offer when you presented this offer last time? It wasn't complete and you were going to complete it and give it to us prior to this meeting. So it should be our turn to counter.
We decided after we took at the end of the last meeting, you had brought up some issues with compression at the top end of sergeants, which we understood to be in the nature of a counter proposal on that proposal. And we decided, we went back to look at, to tweak that to get to the end. And that's what we did.
At the last meeting, you said, and Chief Butler said, let's stop where we are. Let me finish the table and we'll email it to you and we'll come back to the table again.
Yeah, because we didn't have a table. What we were going to do besides tweak.
Last time. You're finishing up your proposal from last time. You can't come in today and say it's your last and final offer when you've never had completed the proposal.
We did have a complete proposal. What we didn't do was give you a table of what that meant in dollars and cents for each person.
Okay. and
We
that's what you
promised to, we,
And did. You come in
did.
today and give us the total. Now it's our turn to count.
right. And we're looking at these specific individuals you're talking about, but we're at our last best final in terms of the overall
We're
structure.
not going to accept that because you presented this offer last time that wasn't complete and you came back today to complete the offer.
Now, Officer Burns said it was complete the last time we offered it. What we said we would do, would we,
Wasn't complete last
hey,
time.
you just interrupted me, okay?
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna quit talking till you're done.
This table was not complete. We were not provided this table when you presented your last offer. You wanted us to stop the meeting, give you time to complete this and bring it back to us. And that's what you did today.
The table is not our offer. The table is simply an illustration of what our last best final offer means in terms of dollars and
This
cents.
is not your last best final offer. It's not you're not on the table now. We are.
Well, all I'm saying is that the graph we gave you, the table we gave you is not part of the contract or the proposed contract. It's simply an illustration of what our contract proposal means.
It was emailed to us as part of it.
No, it's not. It was, the proposal is the document that has the contract language. But let's go ahead, let's get the list, let's go caucus and figure out what we're gonna do with these people that you're talking about, and we'll get back to the table and hopefully wrap this thing up.
Okay, let us give you the names of the ones that he's pointed out so far. And that would be Ashley
Are
Diaz.
you ready to do it now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
hold on a second, because we can
Okay.
look at it, so.
We can send it to you if you like. We can do that. I'll
Okay,
write it
why
down
don't
and
you do
send it
that?
to
You go ahead and give us a list, give us what the issues is, and then just have somebody bring it to us.
Okay.
Okay.
You guys all set?
Yes.
Okay. Well, we took a look at the list of those that you had us with the wrong numbers in the chart, and we're willing to fix with the Diaz, Johnson, Zeal at, keep them at 35.5 for year one of the contract, so that they're not taking any kind of, pay reduction. The way it works in year two, they'll get to the next level, which is 36,551. So they'll still get a over $1,000 increase in year two. And then of course they get the full 3% step in year three of the agreement. So I think that fixes the problem with them. They're not going to get any kind of reduction in pay. Greta Bates, we looked at her, and it appears to us that all we had wrong was her current pay. I think we had her current pay, according to your figures anyway, like $1,000 low, but her prospective pay under our proposal is accurate. But instead of getting a $7,000 raise, she's getting like a $6,000 raise, which is, according to my calculations, almost 18% or 17% increase. So she still gets a substantial increase. So prospectively, what we've illustrated in the graph as to what our proposal means, that is accurate. She'll be going to 41,895 in year one of the collective bargaining agreement. So I think hopefully that addresses the concerns you raised on those individuals. We've got the step pay plan. We used the table that the union came up with. We even advanced it to where it accelerated progression in that pay scale for every year instead of every other year. You can see on the graph, maybe Gretel's was overstated in terms of the amount of increase, but those increases are all very substantial. And we think that, the police force, which is 25% of city employment, is getting almost $200,000 increase in pay, which is at least its fair share of the total increases in the city budget that were mentioned. And besides that, city employees don't have any guarantee of getting anything in future years, whereas you guys are, most of the bargaining unit here is going to get 5% in year two and 4% in year three, and then have the ability to come back to the table then and negotiate. So we've tweaked our proposal here to address the concern about the under payment or whatever in our proposal of those three new hires. But want you to seriously consider taking this back to get it ratified, so we can take it to the city council as soon as possible and get them to ratify it. And hopefully we get this behind us.
Thank you, and thank you for your work. The officers at this point are not sure that we can get this ratified. Taking into consideration all the percentages that you've given us, and the increases that the men and women will be getting, we still have to remember that they haven't gotten anything for a number of years. And so this is not something that they're being handed. It's really something that they've earned and something that they deserve. And we're also taking into consideration that the other city employees have been taken care of at this point. And that's a great thing, but we want the law enforcement officers to be taken care of as well. We came today,
Go ahead.
We received your proposal late yesterday evening. We vetted it as much as we could without staying up all night trying to do that. And we were concerned about the figures, but we were, as we stated when we first came in, we were also concerned about some of the other issues with Article 11. And so we came prepared to make a counter proposal today. And I'm kind of shocked that you're not open to that. If you are open to it, we have one that we would like to make. And if you're not, then at this point, we would have to take some time to think about this.
Well, I think we put our last best final on the table. Now you're free to give us a proposal anytime you want, but But, you know, we're looking at, having the numbers go up. And I think, like I said before, we know we've taken care of the city employees, but, the police department in terms of the increases get more than the 25% in terms of their numbers, in terms of the dollars that, we're putting forward here. If, you know, we give this types of increases to everybody in the city, it'd be 800 to 1,000 to 1,000,000. You know, I think we've been very fair with the police department employees. And we've also looked at, you know, our, competitors in the area and feel we're right in there, and we're continuing to move up. I mean, we know we have to bite the bullet this year, and we can't do like we've done in past years and say you all get a 2% increase and that's it because we have no money. We're pushing it, and hopefully to do it in a way that's sustainable for the future.
We do have a proposal that we would like to submit if you'll accept it.
Well, we're not going to accept it, but you can send it to us. I mean, you
when I
can
say
send it
accept,
to
I
us.
mean, accept and look at it. I don't mean accept. I mean, we'll accept it and look at it. We have one that we would like to give you. And
Well, send it to us.
we will take some time to talk about what you've given us today and see if it's something that our members can tolerate.
Well, I appreciate you trying to sell this to your members, because, you know, we don't want this thing to drag on. And, you know, if you don't get, a resolution and things drag on, you know, positions can harden or change, and, you know, it usually doesn't get better, you know, then, you know, we get into a situation where, you know, it becomes problematic to make the, proposal retroactive to October 1 of this past October 1. And we don't want to do that. We want this in place soon so we can recruit and retain quality officers. And that's what our goal is here.
Are you telling me that you don't plan to make a contract retroactive?
No, I say we are.
Oh, okay.
And my point is, if it drug on for months and months and months, we don't know what would happen. So. But our proposal on the table now is retroactive to October 1.
Okay. Should we submit a proposal to you, or are you're not interested in looking at another proposal?
Well, I don't know. You know, we really think we've gone as far as we can go, but I don't have any hesitancy to look at what you send us. But really, we're at the end of our rope in terms of the number of dollars we're putting on the table in terms of a collective bargaining agreement.
Okay.
We feel like we've been treated unfairly because we're not able to provide a counteroffer to the offer you started last time.
We understood your, discussion at the end of the last meeting, that there were issues of compression where you thought that the top 2 sergeants should get more, was in the nature of a counteroffer. I even asked is that a counteroffer? And I was told yes. At the end of the last meeting, I was told that was your counteroffer. And we went back with that in mind to tweak our proposal to address the one concern that you raised at the end of the meeting, which we did, and we put it on the table today. You can go back and look at the recording of the last meeting, and it specifically, I confirm that what you gave us was a counteroffer.
Yes, sir. And that was if y'all would agree to the increase on the sergeants, the way I presented at that time, we would take it to a vote. Y'all flat rejected that.
Well, we countered it with what we put on the table today.
And you flat rejected it, and Chief Butler said, let us finish out showing you what year 2 and year 3 will look like, and then you will understand it more.
Yeah, and we did. We tweaked it to address that one concern you raised, and
Now we want to present a counter offer to the one you presented.
You're free to do that. There's nothing, I'm just saying that we're at the end of our rope, but you're free to put anything on the table. If you want to take this to impasse, you're going to have something on the table to show what you wanted. So, but we don't want to go to impasse. We want to have you ratify our proposal.
When you walk in today, all of a sudden, this is your last and final offer. You feel like you're backing us in a corner.
We're not. Look, I can tell you, we thought all we needed to do was address your counteroffer from last time on the sergeant's pay, and we'd have a deal. I can tell you, every member of my team thought we were going to walk in, have tweaked that, and we'd have a deal. But then all of a sudden you go back to the
Here.
evergreen. You're interrupting me now. You're interrupting me. And we thought we had a deal, would get a deal today. And then you go back and talk about the evergreen study and how we're way behind everything. And that's what you call bad faith bargaining. That is going backwards, not forwards. We were advancing the ball forward to get an agreement today. We tweaked what you had counter offered. We tweaked that piece of our agreement. We put it on the table as our last best final. We agreed to tweak the salaries of a couple of officers where we made a mistake. We didn't, say, no, we're sticking with our mistake. But that's where we are. And you can do with what you want. You're free to give us a counteroffer. You're free to take this, and we would urge you to take this and urge ratification of this particular agreement. And we will go to city council and urge ratification of it as well, and hopefully get an agreement for 3 years where everybody knows what they're going to get. They know they're going to get 5% and 4% increases. And, in years 2 and 3, and we're off to the races.
Well, I'd like to present our proposal.
And if I may say, I think the issue with the proposal that you gave us and what he gave you at the end of the last meeting, and it may have just been a misunderstanding. What he had asked for was the sergeant's pay to start at the top of the last step for the officer. And I think where you guys put that in at was probably at step 11, 12, 11, maybe 10. And it should have been at step 12. And I think that's where our issue is with the proposal that you gave us today.
Yeah, and JJ, what we did was we, like I said, at the end of the last meeting, we confirmed that was a counter proposal on your side, and we did reject it, but we hadn't yet come up with to counter that, which we did today, and we did it in terms of the last best final offer. So that there's nothing out of sorts in terms of the progression of how these negotiations have gone, and we're it's on the table. We would urge that you ratify it, and we get an agreement.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that you understood where the issue was today in just that, the sergeant's steps.
Yeah, I understand. And that's what we understood that, but you run into even additional costs if you go up higher on the sergeants, because then you've got to deal with the lieutenants. And I know they're not part of the bargaining unit, but it's going to be part of what we need to budget to be able to run the police department. So it has an indirect impact on the budget in more ways than just the sergeants that are affected.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that the chief and the assistant chief and the manager saw the same thing that I'm pointing out to him with the differences in the starting pay for the sergeants. In step 10, the difference between line 10 and line 12 is where we are.
And I'll go over a couple of things on this if I could. The matrix, that is a 50-cent increase for each step. And the first thing it does is solves the problem with the 3 officers that started at 35.5. Nobody loses money with a 50-cent increase. And the officers that are already here, those 3 won't be making more than them the first year with the 50-cent increase. It's actually a $5.60 difference. If you look at it, we did drag the line 12, step 10 down to line 13, step 1 for sergeants. That way the highest paid officer is what the sergeant started at. The steps between the sergeants is at 6% because there's only 5 steps. That gives them a little extra. We would like to ask that during the tenure of this contract that any cost of living adjustments given to the rest of the city will be given to us. We shouldn't have to negotiate for a cost of living adjustment. The only thing we should negotiate for is raises. And for the past 10 years, all we've gotten is cost of living adjustments. We haven't got any merit raises. So what he was saying earlier, the money that was spent for the rest of the city, if you was to do the same thing for the bargaining unit that you did for the rest of the city, it would cost $187,411 to give all of us the $2.72 an hour raise that you just gave the rest of the city. So I don't feel like our request is far above when you consider we hadn't got any merit raises in 10 years. I don't think our request is far above what you've done for the rest of the city. We would also say that FOP in the next contract cycle would not ask for any raises to the step for the years 2024 through 2026. If this is approved, that would be set for 6 years, other than cost of living advances. This does include the prior law enforcement incentive, and it does include the education stipend capped at $2,500, the maximum any one person could get. We feel like,
Go ahead.
yes, sir.
Yeah, I just say, it sounds like you're moving backwards from just having tweaking the sergeant's pay to get a final contract last time to adding cost of living, adding 50 cent an increase. It's going the opposite direction from meeting an agreement, and it's just not warranted. You can't bargain like that, get this close and then go backwards. I mean, it just doesn't work. And, we worked hard. I mean, particularly Chief Butler trying to tweak these numbers. We're very hard at trying to relieve some of that compression at the top end with sergeants to come back with something that we thought we'd come in here, tell you about it, explain it, and get an agreement. And now we're going back to across the board increases. We're going to cost of living increases. That wasn't proposed last time. And again, I said, if we tweak the sergeant's area, is that a counteroffer? And you said, yes. There was nothing about a cost of living increase last time. There was nothing about a 50 cent an hour increase across the table. We are going to address, though, to make sure those people making 35.5 aren't going to go down, and they're going to go up next year regardless. So I guess, team, do you want to caucus or you just want to conclude the meeting?
Well, the 35.5 is not only affects the 3 that started at 35.5. You've got to look at the 4 right above them with less than a year's experience. They're going to be making less than these 3. Those 4 officers are solo officers out responding to calls. These 3 are still in that together.
They're not making less from what we had done. We understood, and we asked you for a list of do we not have right? And you said these 3 people, and we're fixing that.
But the way you're suggesting fixing those 3 creates another problem. We feel our plan alleviates the compression that's occurred to officers over the past 10 years, not receiving any raises above the cost of living raise. It brings our starting pay up competitive with surrounding agency. It offers set raises based on continuous years of service to increase retention of officers. It encourages officers to set goals to achieve either by striving for specialty units or ranking up in the department. We don't feel like what we've asked is ridiculous. Yeah, we've gone back to asking more because you've rejected everything we've said.
No, we haven't. You said we'd reject. This whole pay plan was the union's proposal. We not only accepted it, we accelerated it.
Yes, sir.
We can go back to giving you $2 an hour raise across the board with no step increases anywhere. I mean, we didn't do that. We're going to a step plan that y'all proposed.
And the city council approved in December. Why do we keep having to argue about the step plan when it was approved in December?
Well, it was only approved in terms of the concept. We didn't go to the steps last December. We just started to migrate toward the step plan last December. We're now migrating all the way there through the term of this agreement. We're good. We've got our proposal on the table. Y'all consider it, see what you want to do with it. And, maybe what we just do is break until anybody wants to meet again and somebody can ask to meet. But I don't know what the purpose of it is if we're going backwards all the time.
Let's see, Eric, can we just caucus just for a second and then we'll come back? Okay.
Sounds good to me. Everybody else set?
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, I think we're finished for the day. We looked at your proposal. We're going to stick with our proposal on the table. We're not countering that at all, and nor do we intend to. We went into this negotiations thinking, like I've said several times today, that we were very close as long as we tweaked the issue with compression at the upper end of the sergeants. Turned out that that didn't do the trick. We then caucused again today, thinking the issue is boiled down to the few officers that our proposal on the spreadsheet had them making less than they're currently making. We came back with a proposal to fix it for those three. And we looked just now and none of them will be making more as soon as this contract goes into effect than the ones that are ahead of them. The ones that are ahead of them will be making a little bit more than them and then jump ahead of them even more in year 2. So we're really, we're there. So we have our last best final offer on the table as slightly tweaked, and we again urge you to ratify it. We think if you look at those numbers on the scale that Chief Butler put together, that there are substantial increases throughout. Some are extraordinary increases. And we just think you ought to get it ratified, and so we can take it to the city council and get them to ratify it. So with that, I think we're done for the day.
I tease, Matt.
Mr. Hall,
Yes,
At the moment.
can you give us just a second?
Okay.
sure.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Holhouse?
Yes, sir.
We gave it our best shot. We tried our best, but we will take this to a vote, your proposal.
And we also would ask that you urge ratification too, because I think it's going to be,
We have no doubt it'll ratify.
okay, well, I really appreciate this. I know you put in a lot of work.
And I hope you realize it's nothing personal against you. I'm just trying to do the best I could for the FOP.
Well, I understand that, and I think you've done a tremendous amount of work, obviously, in researching things and putting stuff together, and we appreciate that. I also think a lot of credit goes to our management team, who really, I
Yes.
mean, went to bat for y'all in terms of trying to bring the wage scale up to where they can compete. You know, normally I go into negotiations trying to make sure we don't end up paying too much or anything, but there's a lot of movement from our side to get you more money. So, and I don't mean you personally, but I mean, you know, the bargaining unit, because of the labor market in the police. So we appreciate it. I guess I should put together a complete book proposal, just because we've given you the articles that are being modified, but we should put it all in one book. We'll get it to you, and then you can take it for ratification. But would you prefer a clean and then a red line copy as well?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, if you don't mind. And also, the chief's administrative assistant had asked if there was any way we could put an index at the beginning.
Oh, you mean like a table of contents?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's a task for my assistant. She's good at that kind of stuff.
And I told her that we would mention it to you and see if it was possible.
Yeah. Well, what I'm going to need to do is get a Word version of the current contract. That may be hard to find, but we'll put something together.
And we have Word versions of it.
Yeah. What's your timetable for, well, if you could send me one, that might be helpful, but what's your timetable for ratification? I know sometimes the unions have certain notice requirements and things like that.
No, sir. I mean, you can get it to us by the end of this week, we could vote next week.
Okay, and then we'll take it to city council as soon as we can. And of course, it's all retroactive to October 1, so if a paycheck's missed, it'll be made up with back pay in the next one. All right. Well, again, I appreciate it, and we will sign off.
Okay, thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.